This is the HOKA Skyward X. You have probably heard about it, you've probably seen this shoe. There has certainly been a lot of hype surrounding it. And I think that HOKA is onto something pretty good with this shoe. They've actually done something different. So this is my full review of the HOKA Skyward X. Let's get into it. All right, let's get started with those disclosures. This video is in partnership with my friends over at Roadrunner Sports. Roadrunner Sports was good enough to send me this pair of the HOKA Skyward X for the purpose of review. However, all the thoughts and opinions are my own and they don't have any editorial privileges. With that said, you can pick up a pair of the HOKA Skyward X at Roadrunner Sports for $225. I'll be sure to put a link in the show notes in case you want to pick up a pair for yourself. Okay, you know where we're going to start, right? This shoe is pretty big. In fact, when I took it out of the box, I was like, wow, this is a big shoe. And it is a big shoe. Like when I'm wearing a pair of the HOKA Skyward X, it's very difficult for me to walk through doorways. Now, I don't want to give too much credit to the Skyward X. I actually start off at 6'7", but the stack height is just enough for me to have to kind of duck a little bit when I go through doors. Anyway, in the men's version, we have 48 in the heel, 43 in the forefoot. In the women's version, we have 46 in the heel, 41 in the forefoot for a 5mm drop. HOKA claims that in a US men's size 10, the Skyward X will tip the scale at 11.3 ounces or 320 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 12.5, the Skyward X tips the scale at 13.1 ounces or 371 grams. So look, I know a lot of you are like rolling your eyes, you're ruling it out because it's a fairly heavy shoe. But I want you to hold judgment for now. Because just like some other shoes, Adidas Prime X2 Strung, I'm looking at you, this shoe does not feel as heavy as the scale would indicate. Now, this is the Skyward X. The X indicates that there is a plate inside this shoe, but it doesn't have a plate for the same reason that maybe some other shoes have plates, like to make you go faster. This is a max cushion daily trainer. This thing is built for comfort. But I'll explain how the carbon fiber plate comes in just a second. Let's start at the top. Let's work our way down. We can see we've got a good amount of padding around the heel collar, though it's not a crazy amount, right? In fact, relatively speaking, for the size of the shoe, there is a minimal amount of padding around this heel collar. Now, it's more than enough to feel good around my heel, but I like seeing that HOKA hasn't overdone it and made this upper super bulky. It's actually very streamlined and very comfortable. We've got this nice elf ear flare at the back. Now, the heel counter is extremely rigid. We do have this TPU overlay right here at the back. There is no way I'm pushing that down. It doesn't get any more rigid than this. Again, that's a good thing. This rigid heel counter is going to make sure our heel stays in place. Now, HOKA is using a flat knit upper. Very nice to look at. It's very comfortable to put your foot in, and HOKA is incorporating some zonal technology. Basically, what that means is they're using different weaves of knit in the upper, and that's going to create a little bit of structure, and it's going to make the overall fit better. It works. It's a very comfortable upper. As far as the overlays go, there really aren't too many. Clearly, we've got this big TPU piece on the back, little overlay for the branding here on the side. We have a little bit coming around this toe bumper here. Now, there is an underlay and an overlay, and then we've got a little bit coming along the eyelet chain just to strengthen that for when you cinch down the laces. But other than that, there are minimal overlays on this shoe, and I think HOKA has achieved quite a clean look. Okay, let's talk about the tongue. The tongue, at its medium in thickness, it's not super plush as you may expect from a daily trainer. It's like just the right amount of thickness. On the inside, that's very difficult to see from here, but I'll lay something over. The tongue is a little wider than you might ordinarily expect, or you might have seen in other shoes. And that padding extends out to the sides of this tongue. It's actually very comfortable. So when you cinch down the laces, you are getting a nice fit. There is no chance of lace bite. For quite a well-padded tongue, it is extremely comfortable. Now, the tongue is not gusseted, but we do have a lace loop here in the middle, and I didn't experience any movement of the tongue when it was all locked in and I was running. Now, you see this here? You see these red parts right here on both sides? This is all you can see from the outside of these red internal bands. Actually, I don't know if they're red on all colorways, probably not, but in my colorway, they're red. And basically, there is an internal band that's about that thick, and it attaches at the top of the eyelet chain, and then it comes down to the midsole. It does that on both the lateral and the medial side. And basically, this is just creating a little cocoon. It's like a seatbelt for your foot. So when you tie down the laces and you lock it down, those midfoot bands lock around your foot, and it feels extremely secure. Okay, that's one of the things that I want you to take away with you, because I know when we have a shoe with this amount of stack, some of you are going to be wondering, how stable does the shoe feel? And I'll tell you right off the bat, it feels extremely stable. And I think that is a lot to do with how well the upper locks down across your foot. Now, before we talk about the midsole, I do want to point out that when I hold this up, and you can see on both sides here on the heel, this just looks enormous, and it's not that much midsole. Okay, the midsole foam does wrap up just a little bit, and then your foot sinks in and it goes slightly below the top of this midsole. So you're not standing as high as what it seems like when you first look at the shoe. Now let's get down to the midsole, because I think HOKA has done something really nice with this. So it's a dual density midsole. Now the top layer is PIBA, and you can't see that because it's all inside, but that is what your foot is on when you put your foot into the shoe. And then on the base, kind of like as a carrier for the PIBA foam, there is a supercritical EVA. Now I know some of you are going to say, Matt, EVA is like a 4-letter word, but it's not. This is HOKA's supercritical EVA. It's the same supercritical EVA that is found in the Mark 6. It is extremely responsive and it's a really solid foam. And when it's paired with the supercritical PEBA foam, it creates a really nice ride. So I don't want you thinking that this supercritical EVA is the same EVA that your dad wore in his old running shoes. It's not. It's a solid foam. Okay, so sandwiched in between this supercritical PEBA foam and then this supercritical EVA carrier is a kind of H-shaped carbon fiber plate. Now this carbon fiber plate is going to make the shoe very rigid. It's fairly rigid. I mean, I am bending it, but I'm putting a bit of effort into it. And in the case of this shoe, the carbon fiber plate is going to give a little bit of support. It is going to give propulsion, but it's not a race day shoe. I promise you that even though this has a carbon plate in it, you will not want to take this shoe out on race day. There are too many other good options. And the Skyward X is not made for that. Now I'm going to overlay something while I explain this, but at the rear of the shoe, the carbon fiber plate is slightly thicker on the lateral side and it's slightly thinner on the medial side. And then if I hold this up, you can see this part of the exposed carbon fiber plate. That's where the plate sort of folds up just a little bit. It creates a little lip. So for a lot of us runners that heel strike, we are going to land on our lateral heel edge and then roll forward. So this shape of the carbon fiber plate is just going to give a little extra support and a little extra structure to these supercritical foams. Now, this is not a stability shoe whatsoever, but we've got some elements that are making it a more stable ride. Moving on down to the outsole, we have a lot of rubber here. Now look, I know $225 is a lot of money, but I want you to kind of put that out of your head for a second because we have a lot of outsole rubber here, and just looking at the outsole rubber, now I can already see that I have worn away some of the very small grooves, but looking at the wear that I have put into this pair of Skyward X, it is very minimal, and just by looking at it, I can see that these shoes are going to last a long time. Now if I hold this up, you can see this big cutout in the middle, that's going to save a little bit of weight, and you can see the two cross pieces of this carbon fiber plate, and then this red foam right in the middle, that's the PEBA foam. I want you to also notice how wide this shoe is. It is quite wide. It gives a very stable platform. You notice HOKA hasn't done anything with a cutout here on the medial side of foam. That is also going to create a little bit of support, and if you need it, it's going to help stop your foot from collapsing inward. And even if you don't need it, when you have this much stack height, we could probably use a bit of help, because once we get up, like if you're wearing a pair of stilts, they're going to be inherently unstable. The same thing goes with high stack shoes, and HOKA has tackled this beautifully, because even though in my pair we have 48 millimeters in the heel, 43 in the forefoot, I have found the Skyward X to be remarkably stable. Like think about race day shoes when we're up at that 40 millimeter limit, and when you run around a corner, it feels like your foot is going to slide off the top of the shoe. That is the furthest thing from running in the Skyward X, and that's due to a lot of factors, but you can see we do have some sole flare here, and along with that, very wide base. Now what I did expect before I ran in this shoe, when I was like just looking at it, I did expect this shoe to be a little clunky. Like I was wondering how it would all flow together and run, and I didn't find this to be clunky at all. So we've got a nice medially biased heel bevel, we've got good rocker geometry, and all in all, this shoe just flowed while I was running in it. The step-in feel was good, and it felt ridiculously comfortable on the run, okay? But I know that a lot of shoes can be comfortable on the run. The HOKA Skyward X is just a little different, and this is partially to do with the supercritical PEBA foam and the supercritical EVA carrier, but I think it is primarily to do with this carbon fiber plate. Now, HOKA says that the carbon fiber plate is of a convex shape, and that provides a feeling of suspension. So when your foot hits the ground, that carbon fiber plate compresses, flattens out, and then moves you forward. It's a very unique feeling. It's not the same type of forward propulsion feeling that you're going to have in, say, the Rocket X2, but that feeling of suspension adds just another level of comfort to your run. Now, in my testing, I took this out for mostly easy runs. In fact, the only time I really did pick up the pace was when I did a few strides. And you know what? This shoe feels perfectly fine. I certainly wouldn't pick this shoe if I was going to actually go out and do some speed workouts, but for the majority of our runs, the HOKA Skyward X is definitely worth a look. And I know $225 is a lot of money, but I think HOKA has done something actually unique. And if you are a HOKA fan or you like the way it sounds, I'd recommend pulling the trigger and giving these a go. Whatever happens, you are going to have an obscenely comfortable pair of shoes. So now it's your turn. I want to hear your thoughts. Are you thinking of picking up a pair of the HOKA Skyward X? And even if you're not thinking of picking up a pair, I'd love to know your thoughts about the shoe, the design, the engineering that's gone into it. So drop a comment and let me know. And with that, it's Matt B. This has been my review of HOKA's Skyward X. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.